Welcome to the pre-meeting for our April 12th. Few items on here to go over. And Charlie probably got a big plan for us right now. Scott, you're going to tell us something.
I'm just trying to get this thing up and running so Tammy can tell you something.
Be nice if you tell us something, okay?
Are we start? Do you guys want me to talk now or do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good to go.
My item is the proposed new high school out west. I don't think there's a name for it yet. They have proposed a new high school with all of the associated fields and such on a 52-acre site. Access is from 2200 south and 4300 west. I will say in an initial review of this project, planning did ask for a half road with the dedication along that western boundary. We have since in discussions with the applicant, we have modified that request to have trail access from the west. We've got 27 acres of undeveloped land over there. But at some point will, I'm sure, be residential development. So we would like that area to be able to access the high school from the west. Those are kind of the main points of interest. Do you have any questions for me after kind of reading through the packets?
Well, I think it's important to have, if we can, get 33 feet there from the school on that west boundary. Because I think that, 4,500 is already started in the next block to the south. And I think that it's important to try at least to get that. I mean, I can see by reading through the information that, the school board's going to do what the school board's going to do. And it really doesn't matter what the county or the planning commission for sure has to say about it. But I think it's important to have that road. Yeah, I think a lot of things can be done without me.
So just the west side would be by the field,
Correct.
that side. And right now they're not proposing any sort of,
No, there's been resistance from the applicant, I'm sure in part because they have such a packed site plan. If you've had a chance to look at it, they're kind of pushed right up against those setbacks over there.
Yeah.
With what they've proposed, and I'm not sure, if or how they could rearrange that to be able to still accommodate everything that they would like to see there. To give you kind of an idea as to the size of the school that they're proposing, they've got over 1,500 parking stalls proposed in total on that site. Anyway, so in discussions with them, we decided we still needed at least some kind of connection from there. And so I think in the packet, you'll see an exhibit that shows where we'd like to see that proposed pathway come through. Comes east-west in between a couple of the fields.
Yeah. oh, I see now.
And that's a path going east-west through the school, basically.
Yes. Mhm. Now, they've cited concerns with securing their fields. I've seen other high schools that have no trouble securing their fields and still having walkways in between. So,
Oh, they don't have a walkway between, they'll create some sort of a walkway.
mhm.
And you always have to get equipment too. For maintaining fields. And for students, so that as that gets developed, they can go through the back instead of having to go all the way around the school property. That's the main concern, I assume.
Right, there are 2 access points from 2200 south. There's about 5 from 4300.
Mhm.
I don't know why we would push students down to a main roadway
Right.
from that area when they don't need to.
What's the plan for 4300? Is that road going to, I mean, I'm sure it's going to expand in front of the school, but is there a plan for it to expand the entirety of it? Like from, at least from 2550 over to 1800
Yeah, this
and
way.
maybe over to 2200, or excuse me, 1400.
Let's see if I can pull up
We-
our current transportation plan. That would be a better question for you.
Yeah, we have some discussion with them tomorrow. They'll Talk to us about the roads and how we-
So right now, is there any road dedication at all? Or it looks like there is on the east side and the south side.
Yeah, they are proposing. They are proposing some roadway dedication there.
It's just on the east, and is it everywhere but the west,
No, just the east and the south.
east and the south?
Mhm.
And it's just 33 feet that they're dedicating.
They are. Actually, this is going to be easier.
And you're discussing how these roads align with existing roads tomorrow. Is that what I gathered?
Yes.
It's just how it comes through. Okay.
What's the thought, Director, on 45, or what would be the west boundary of the school? I mean, it's on the long-term transportation, I believe. So there'd be a
It
road.
is. I think we should be trying to get as much as we can. And you know, we can make those requirements and see where it goes.
Even if they're so crowded on their development, you know, maybe they'd be willing to purchase over,
Yeah.
you know, the neighbor on the west. I don't know.
And if we have it on record, at least we tried.
Anything else, commissioners? Well, thank you, Tammy.
All right, commissioners, want to talk about this second item?
Yes, please.
So the second item is final approval or request for final approval of phase 3 of the Taylor Landing subdivision. I'll share my screen here so you guys can see. Alright. So this is in between 2200 South and 18th South. As you'll recall, Taylor Landing is a cluster subdivision, 5 phases. They've platted the first phase. They're working on their second phase to get that through the county commission. This third phase is now coming to you for final approval before moving on to the county commission. Show you where we're at. Okay, so again, between 1800 South, 2200 South, and about 4300 West, phase 3 is on the west side of the property here. And if we jump to the preliminary plan, so it's north south. This is the project as a whole. So this is all 5 phases, 156 lots. The applicant so far has platted phase 1A, which is this tier of lots here. Phase 1B will be this second tier of lots at a future time when they're able to secure the rest of the right of way for this road to go through. Phase 3 consists of 35 lots, and that's an error in our report. I apologize, we had mentioned 34, it's actually 35. But it kind of wraps around and completes this horseshoe connecting the first two phases back down to 2200 South. Okay, so that's the tier of lots that are being platted. And then the open space that's associated with this phase is this one here in the middle for phase 3. The total acreage of lots is 12.85 acres, and then the open space is 13.16 acres. As a whole, the entirety of the project proposed to dedicate 58.25% of the overall net developable acreage is open space. And you can see all 5 phases of open space here, which was meant to be contiguous and useful for large scale farming operation. And as we plat each phase, there's a portion that gets platted that is consistent with that 58.25%. So as they plat each phase, they're dedicating a proportionate amount of the open space. So this will be the piece that is dedicated for this third phase. As part of the first 2 phases, they obviously were annexed into Central Weaver Sewer. They've been working on improvements for sewer and water. And so for phase 3, we have preliminary approvals through Taylor West Weaver Water and Whipper Irrigation. And then also we have a feasibility letter through Central Weaver Sewer for all 156 lots. Obviously, as a requirement before they finalize their Mylar and record, is they'll need to have final approval letters through those water companies. But do you have any questions on what is proposed or before you here?
I have a couple.
Mhm.
What is that rectangular on the west side? That rectangular section there, yeah.
This is a stormwater detention basin. So it's a common area that is maintained by the HOA, and that will be platted as part of either phase 4 or 5. So that is a proposed detention area.
And how do they access those long, just to the south of that, there's all those long lots,
Right
but
here.
they have no road access.
Yeah, so this was a first phase of what was called the Sunset Equestrian Subdivision. So these are already
Oh.
platted.
I see. Those are those ones that have the houses at the front, and that's their open space to the back, so it
Correct.
doesn't need access.
Yep.
Or it doesn't have access. And so there are 3 water retention basins.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, you can kind of see them here in purple highlights.
And there's a path through where it looks like it would be nice if the road went through.
Mhm.
Is that a walking path that's delineated there?
That's right. So this is a 10-foot easement to allow for mid-block crossings. You can see there's one on this side of the project as well.
Okay.
We had kind of looked at, making connections. The code requires that we have a mid-block crossing about mid-block if we're getting upwards of a longer block. So from this intersection to this intersection, that's where it's long enough that I needed that mid-block connection being made.
Okay.
There's this stub right here that allows, that's a stub for, future connection. As not as part of this particular proposal, but as part of phase 1, the applicant did work with the Parks District to dedicate a large portion of this first phase as park area. So we'll actually see the West Weaver Parks District utilize about 10 acres in this first phase for a future park. So we'll have some access for them to access both north and south.
Question.
Mhm.
The open space for phase 3, that's where the barn is.
That's right. Yeah, all those buildings will be torn down. So you can kind of see
Do
them
they have
outlined
a-
here.
Do they have a date to have that done?
Not that I know of. This is a Marche Stokes, the applicant's representative.
Questions, commissioners?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Would be a good question for engineering.
Assume they purchased it under Situation.
I assume, I don't think they have any outlets or any intention to drain anywhere.
But there's sidewalk, curb and gutter through this.
Correct.
Anything else? Okay. Well, I think,
There isn't an HOA.
There is an HOA. Mhm.
So they're just HOA.
Yeah, and those two little trails are also maintained by the HOA, so those are common area that's designated.
Said that I missed that, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're okay.
all right. Charlie, do you want to give us anything before the meeting? For those of us that didn't get the homework done, that just got the email right before he left for the meeting? Perfect. Okay.
One thing I do want to update you on, we have sent out some dates for the general plan. We're still working towards a joint meeting on the 27th for with the county commission and the planning commission. But because of getting everything drafted and our consultant, we went over budget on that. We're doing that. So the other dates we have may be extended out just a bit because we're still trying to get caught up on a lot of this stuff. So just FYI, we'll probably be getting with you on a revised timeline of when everything will be going. We were hoping to get it to the county commission for a public hearing sometime in the end of May, but I think it's going to bleed over a bit. So we'll get you those dates.
Hopefully this is looking hopefully like the last pushback.
We're hoping. Yeah, we've had a few pushbacks. We're hoping to have it done sometime the first part of March, but obviously that didn't happen. So we'll see where we go, but most likely my gut feel is our time frame will probably be sometime in July is what I'm kind of hoping for.
So we'll get to go to the commission.
Well, I think holding time.
Yeah.
But we talking, of course, but
Yeah, and we have spoken with the commissioners and they understand that, there's election coming up and obviously Commissioner Fuller is in the ballot, but he wants to make sure it's done right. And he's very concerned that we don't rush it through, but we make sure we get it right. And so he's cognizant of it and that's concern.
Okay. Well, looks like we have about a 6-minute break. Start at 5 o'clock. I'm gonna take advantage of that break.
Scott, is this for the combined planning commission meeting? Does it begin at 5 or 5:30? I had 4:30. Scott Perkes?
Commissioner Harvey,
Yes.
the combined meeting will be on the 27th. This is just a
Oh.
work se-
This is a what?
this is just a work session tonight.
Also, not
Will you-
necessary.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But if you want to, pop in, you're more than welcome to, but this is just more for the planning commission tonight.
I think I'll just listen in.
Okay,
I'm gonna
that would be awesome.
take Jeremy's role. He does a good job at that. Let me see if I can emulate that. That'll work. Great. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome to our April 12th meeting for Western Weaver County Planning. And we'll get started, and we'll get started with the pledge. Okay, it looks like Commissioner Call and Commissioner Edwards are out tonight, excused. Oh, and Commissioner Clontz, thank you. You guys are stuck with the four of us. Okay, any comments or questions on the minutes? Okay. Oh, okay, okay. Next time. We'll have two next time, right? Okay, all right. Oh, I thought that, did minutes go out with the original package though, or not? Oh. Oh, okay, okay, that's where I remembered seeing that. Okay, thank you. All right, then we'll get started with item 2, administrative items. 2.3 DR 2021-15, request for approval of a design review for the new high school located approximately 4400 west, 2200 south in Taylor. Proposal outlines additional site improvements that include hard surface parking, sports field, landscaping, in addition to the main school building. Tammy.
Good evening, commissioners. Bear with me here while I get this up on the screen. Scott, are you still sharing this screen somehow? Let's try this again. Can you guys see this? Let's see. Try this again. Sorry about that, commissioners. Okay. Just this one for you. Okay, the proposal is a new high school for the Weber School District. This is a 52-acre site located at 4300 west, 2200 south. I'm gonna go back up here. Just wanted to kind of show you a little bit. I think a question that came up in the pre-meeting from one of the planning commissioners was what the proposed roadway widths were for 2200 south and 4300 west. And they're both slated for 66 feet. Doesn't mean that may not change in the future, but for right now, that's what we've got them at. As far as the school district property goes, we have the necessary width along those roadways. We have a couple of parcels here to the south a little bit, but at some point we'll need to dedicate some roadway to accommodate that. This is located in the A1 zone, and so the standards for the A1 zone do apply. The setbacks for a main building are 30 feet front and rear and 20 feet along 2200 south and to the north. A couple of things to note. This is an interesting application because state code kind of comes into play here. and does allow for some exemptions under our design review section of our land use code. Some of those exemptions, let me just kind of, first of all, let me show you the site plan here. As you can see, this is a pretty packed site plan. You've got your main building here, and I'll show you elevations here in a few minutes. This has varying elevations. It's your typical high school. The heights vary anywhere from 35 to 65 feet. The county has discretion as to whether or not we want to enforce that maximum 35 feet in height. Staff feels it's not necessary in this case. As you can see, they have ample parking. Applicant is proposing a total of 1,501 stalls, 28 of which are ADA. They've got various sports fields here. And just a reminder, this is north here. So if you're going back to the map, let's go and get back up here. You'd have the high school along, let's see, position. There we go. You got the high school along here. You've got the football field to their rear. We go back to the site plan. They've got 2 points. Sorry, my cursor kind of keeps disappearing here. There we go. They've got 2 points of ingress egress along 2200 south, and they have 5 along 4300 west here. Just kind of pointing those out. And I believe that's on an exhibit in the staff report. Some things that we typically review would be traffic and safety circulation. We're looking to make sure that the traffic flow is such that we're not creating any new hazards or adding to any existing hazards, and hopefully actually mitigating any existing hazards. Typically, we would look at landscaping. We would require a landscaping plan. We'd also look at buildings and site layout, how much of that area is covered by structures. And then we would address through our engineering department, utility easements, drainage, and other concerns that they would have. There are some exemptions, as I've stated, with our state code. This is the reference here, and this is contained in your staff report. What the county may do, what we are allowed to do, is to subject a charter school or a school district to standards within each zone pertaining to setback, height, parking, traffic circulation, construction staging, and of course, we're looking at health and safety as well in there. These are some of the exemptions that apply to this application. That while we do have a landscaping plan, and you'll see that on a slide in a moment here, we did upload an initial review to Frontier actually on this project that was quite thorough, and we did address landscaping. We also mentioned, put this up here. Sorry, this is a little slower than my fingers, I think. One thing that was called out in our initial review was a request for roadway dedication all along this western boundary. Okay, they do have access on 2 sides of their school, on 2200 and 4300. And we did request a 33-foot wide road dedication on that side, just as a matter of interest and something that does come out of our code. When we look at block lengths, we look at a maximum of 1,300 feet. And the distance from 4300 west to this western boundary is right at 1,300 feet. So it would be an appropriate place to call that out or to make that requirement. And the Planning Commission certainly has that discretion. If the applicant doesn't like that requirement, there is an appeals process for that. Go back down here. Landscaping, fencing, building materials, those are things that we cannot necessarily look at. They are exempt from lighting and signage regulations as well. These are some of the building elevations that they've provided. They've actually given us quite a comprehensive set of elevations that show materials and colors. And as you can see the varying elevations on the various sides of the school. I don't think that's anything out of the ordinary, frankly, for newer high schools these days. This is their landscaping plan. They've proposed quite a bit of landscaping, actually, even though they've got about, I believe in their plan, they've got about 25 to 30 acres of hardscape, but they are proposing several different types of trees and shrubs and quite a bit of turf in their landscaping plan. When we look at projects, again, we've touched on this before. We're looking at connectivity, we're looking at access and making sure that we're mitigating any potential hazards and kind of keeping traffic flowing in a pattern that would minimize any hazards, I guess. One thing that we have done, even though we called out that roadway dedication along the western boundary, we have had a couple of discussions with the applicant since that initial review. And we did agree at minimum, planning would like to see a pathway, an east-west pathway running through the school grounds that connects it to that 27 acres of undeveloped property to the west. And so with everything that you have in your staff report, that is the one condition that planning has outlined, subject to all review agency requirements, and that at minimum a pathway connect through this proposal. Do you have any questions? And I'm not sure if the applicant is present this evening. I'm not entirely sure. When I tried to do some research as far as what schools typically require and how many parking spaces per number of student body, I wasn't able to find much information on that. I'm assuming they're planning for more than the number of parking stalls, but I'm not sure if Charlie, because Charlie's a bit of a savant at statistics, he may have that information. I don't know. I think that's a reasonable guess.
Sorry. I think Bonneville High is about 1,500, maybe 2,000 students. And this will probably be, I would assume 3,000 students.
And they'll already be 500 students over when they open the doors.
Right.
That's the way it's been. Is it safe to say there won't be any street side parking here like there is at Fremont?
These are public right-of-ways. So engineering will tell you that they can't disallow parking within public right-of-ways. So I couldn't tell you. They don't have any indications on their site plan that they're designating any in the public right-of-way.
Yeah, the streets over at Fremont are much wider than these.
Right.
And every once in a while, I know there's some issues over there, minor, but I guess, there'd be times a year there could be farm equipment going up down there, large stuff. And, I get the fact that they can park on the public, but it might start causing some issues with the public right away.
And that's something the engineering department can look at, where it's our public streets, if we want to restrict parking at a later date. But typically with the 66-foot right away, it allows for parallel parking on both sides.
Thank you.
Commissioners, your staff. Well, I kind of thought about it in more terms of safety. I mean, given that 43 goes over and dead ends at the railroad tracks. 22, I'm not sure how much improvement's going to happen on going east from 43 on 2200. And that's not much more than a cow trail. And going west, it sounds like there's going to be some improvement, at least to the end of their property. And then that's probably it for now. And so it kind of concerns me to get, let's say, a potential of 1,500 cars and buses and whatever else it takes to get students out of here in case there's a problem, to not have some sort of a road that goes through that is on our plan to go through. I've kind of looked at it more from a safety perspective than a development perspective. So.
Chair, a question. So right now, you know this area better. That is where we have a major collector planned. is along the back of the road, or is it minor? What level of road do we have planned?
What is that one? Maybe staff can help us out here. Charlie, you want to?
So it won't be conducive to going right through the middle of the subdivision. I mean, to Commissioner McCormick's point, that if a developer comes in to develop the adjacent property, they're not homes on one side of the street and then 80-foot collector and homes on the other side of the street. We'll probably have to do an exemption to have backyards to this collector and the school. That is part of the transportation plan to have that exception. And then with the pathway, then I would assume when you have a football game, there are going to be cars lining both sides of that street. But there won't be any homes, so it probably won't be terrible. And then they'll access through that. It'll provide more parking.
And so the transportation plans for that, for 4,500, essentially, give or take, that's that size of a facility. Oh, okay. That's larger than I anticipated, so. Thank you. So that makes it even that much more. The other side. Yeah. Yeah, and we may or may not get it, but I think it's important to at least try. Anyway, any other questions or comments for staff? Well, then I'll ask for a motion in that case, and then we can discuss it further. Have a motion in a second.
Well, I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the Weber School District New High School design review application. This recommendation is conditioned upon all review agency requirements and the following conditions. One, that a pedestrian pathway access as shown in Exhibit C shall be shown and legally granted to the county as a public pathway prior to written approval of this design review application as issued. And number two, a 33-foot road dedication on the west side of the property be added. This recommendation is based on the following findings. Warehouse storage is permitted as a primary use within the A1 zone. And number two, the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the applicable land use codes.
Okay, have a motion. Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Andriotti,
Aye.
Commissioner Ricker,
Aye.
Commissioner McCormick. Chair votes aye as well. That item passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item, 2.2 on our agenda, LVT 0160622. Request for final approval of Taylor Landing Phase 3 Cluster Subdivision consisting of 34 lots located at 4075 West 2200 South. Mr. Perkes.
Thank you, commissioners. As a reminder, as we discussed in the pre-meeting, a point of clarification, it's 35 lots, not 34.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My mistake. Yeah, so this is a request for final approval of this third phase of the Taylor Landing Cluster Subdivision. Overall, the subdivision is 156 lots over 5 phases, with a substantial amount of open space being dedicated for agricultural use and also for some park area. Of this third phase, however, they will be dedicating 13.16 acres. And you can see that area on the plan. This is the preliminary plan, but it kind of gives a global view of the project as a whole. So this entire phase 3 parcel, 13.16 acres, will be dedicated and is intended to be used for agricultural purposes. This request for these 35 lots consists of 12.85 acres, currently zoned A1, which cluster subdivisions are allowed use in the A1 zone. As far as water and sewer connections are concerned for this third phase, Taylor West Weaver Water has provided a preliminary will serve letter to provide service for phase 3. Hooper Irrigation has also provided a preliminary will serve letter. And Central Weaver Sewer will be providing sewer for this portion of the project as well. Obviously, as a condition of final plat recording, you'll need to get final approval letters from each of those service providers. But staff does recommend approval of this third phase, subject to the conditions in the staff report and the findings. The conditions are that the applicant address any agency requirements, reviewing agency requirements, but that also they need to enter into an agreement with the plat for their open space preservation parcel that details the open space preservation plan and any conditions that are necessary to execute that open space preservation plan, which is fairly simple. It is open space for agricultural purposes. We talked about the final approval letters from the service providers, but they will also need to work with the engineering department to have their civil drawings reviewed and their estimates for those improvements approved before we can move forward to the county commission for final approval at the commission level. Do you guys have any questions about the project or staff's recommendation or the conditions in the staff report?
Just one thing, Scott, I want to make sure I understand. So I'm looking at Hooper Irrigation's will serve. And just to make sure that the language, this is not a final, but a final will be required in the, let's see, under item 2 in the recommendation. Is that right?
That's right. Yep. So it's
Okay.
preliminary. We'll want to have a final letter that is submitted, just acknowledging that they're okay with that plat being recorded and they satisfied any remaining conditions that they may have.
Right. And so it's same for Taylor West Weaver.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming the Central Weaver probably the same.
Yeah, Central Weaver Sewer is interesting because this project is so large. They've been working with Central Weaver Sewer on phases 1, 2, this large lift station that they're installing for the whole project. So they're well aware. They've been annexed into the district. So we will ask for a final letter on this phase from them as well, but they're well aware of this project by now.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
The date on the existing structure since our release in this 13.16. Be even with it, maybe extend it to even as late as October, just so we have a date.
We could certainly require that parcel be clean prior to the recording of the plat or prior to the first building permit or something along those lines, like a milestone. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, I don't think we ought to be, because you got other phases involved here too. I don't think it should be soon, because as busy as things are, sometimes it's relatively hard to get people there. That's a challenge too, right?
Right. Would you like to come down and give us some more information for the record? Give us your name and address to start with, and then we can go from there.
Oh, these microphones. My name is Marcia Stokes, and our current office is at 2650 Washington Boulevard, Suite 203. And in terms of that demo, like we kind of started to discuss in the pre-meeting, we've actually already started the demo. Sage Demolition is the company doing it. The permits are done on it. If anybody were to pass by right now outside of the main still building of the barn that's there, pretty much all of that has already, existing stuff has been demoed. The next step is they will be bringing a concrete crusher on site, and all that concrete will be crushed on site. We will actually be buying that concrete back because it will be much down to that 3- structural fill. So we will make use out of what is being demoed on that site. And once that's complete, they're anticipating mid-May to end of May to actually be done with the demo. Obviously then, depending on exactly what is to be done in terms of if somebody is willing to go out and put ag on it, or if it needs to sit, it will just be kind of a light grade off and making sure weeds and things like that and grub piles are kept down, things like that. We've been told that that isn't some of the best farming land. So if somebody approaches us and does want to farm on it, that's definitely part of that open space preservation plan. But in terms of timing on the demo, we're anticipating that to be done by the end of May. Final cleanup, I would guess, within a week after that. Any questions?
Commissioner, again, any questions? Okay,
Great,
thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, anything else for staff? Any more discussion? Anything else, commissioners, for staff? Okay, I'll ask for a motion then.
Make a motion to recommend final approval of the Taylor Landing Cluster Subdivision Phase 3 based on the proposed plan adhering to the requirements of Weber County land use codes, including the design standards in the Cluster Subdivision Ordinance. This recommendation for approval is subject to all review agency requirements and based on the following conditions. 1, per LUC 108-3-5 F3, an agreement shall be recorded with the final plats to the title of all open space preservation parcels that details the open space preservation plan and any conditions necessary to execute the open space preservation plan. 2, final letters of approval shall be submitted from Taylor West Weber Water, Hooper Irrigation Company, and the Central Weber Sewer Improvement District prior to recording the final plat. 3, approved subdivision improvements shall be installed or an escrow established for their installation prior to recording the final plat. And 4, the open space parcel must be cleared of buildings before the first building permit is issued. And this recommendation is based on the following findings. The proposed subdivision conforms to the Western Weber General Plan, and 2, the proposed subdivision complies with applicable county ordinances.
Masterful. Okay, have a motion. I'll ask for a second.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Commissioner McCormick? Commissioner Andreotti?
Aye.
Commissioner Wicker?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, now it looks like, so are we going to adjourn to the work session, or do we want to change this and have public comments in case some of the folks aren't going to partake in the work session?
I think that'd be good.
Okay, do we need to do anything formal with that, Liam? Okay, all right, so we're going to move the item number 4, which is public comment for items not on the agenda, up to and replace item 3 with it. So anybody here that has any comments from the public, now is your time. Okay, we have one taker. Give us your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Chad Buck. My address is 2205 South, 400 East in Clearfield. And I didn't have any comments until I just heard the school stuff. So now I have a comment. I own the property to the west of the school. I've talked to the school about the road, and they've basically told me that if I want to put a 66-foot road on the side of my property, I can, but they're not going to do anything. So just FYI on that. Also, I think I don't think I've been to most of your planning for the work sessions for the new general plan. There's nothing in the new transportation plan about an 80-foot road going through that property. I've talked to the planning commission or the planners. Right now we're planning just to do a 66-foot wide road through there. Also talked about doing the sidewalk. I know you guys are doing a pathway or want the pathway for the school. And I've been asked to do a pathway as well to tie into the school. My concern about the pathway is that, and this kind of was mentioned by all of you, is that if there's a pathway between the subdivision and the school, I'm afraid there'll be lots of school parking going on in the subdivision, not just for like sporting events, but during every school day. I have 2 high school kids. They can find any secret parking lot anywhere in the world as long as it saves them 5 steps to get to school. So I have a concern that that subdivision would then be completely filled every day with high school kids parking there so they can go across the sidewalk. We are planning on doing a road that goes east-west. It will go all the way to, well, I don't own all of the property, but at least it would be part of the plan so that it could go out to 4700 West through the subdivision. But I just wanted to voice my concerns about the 80-foot road, the road on the road between the high school and then the pathway. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, so I think we're going to go ahead. We'll just go on down through the rest of the regular stuff like we would for a meeting, and then we'll adjourn to the, okay, so we're going to go to any remarks for planning from the planning commissioners.
Believe it or not, I don't have it.
Wow. Okay.
And I actually have one, and it has to do with the same thing that Commissioner Andreotti usually talks about. There was an article in
You're rubbing off.
no, KSL. It said, "Are Californians to blame for changes in Utah? Who's really living here?" And just it reiterates that Utah is not even in the top 10 destinations for Californians. And Utah, all of the states around us are experiencing at least only about 40% of their residents staying. Utah is over 60% of their residents staying. And so when you look at the numbers, we have a homegrown problem. This is not a California problem. Maybe Idaho, we get a decent amount of Idahoans, but they're getting a lot of Californians, more than us even. So just to make sure everyone knows that the problem we're solving for us, it's not a problem we're solving because of the Californians or anyone else, but it is a Utah homegrown issue. And so we can't, when you look at our, the information that Charlie has put out about the demographics of Western Weber, those big properties represent some very wealthy individuals compared to the rest of Weber County. And so we can't just keep all the land to ourselves unless we want to pay the appropriate taxes and everything that goes along with it. Everyone will have, and those property owners will become wealthier still once the land is sold, I'm sure. But we need to create opportunities for Utahns to live in Utah. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right.
No, I read it. People quit listening.
You're making,
Throw a bad joke in there.
you're mixing it up a little bit. Okay, good. Good. Okay. We'll get some remarks from Director Grover, if he has any.
Just FYI, we are going to be revising our affordable housing plan. There's requirements this year in state law that talks about implementation and what needs to be done. So that's going to be something that will be on your docket in the near future. So in addition to the general plan, that's another thing we're going to be looking at in the near future, just to kind of give you a heads up. That's all I have. Oh, also with the gentleman, Mr. Buck, with his comments about the trail access, if we do find parking issues along that road, a municipality or the county could do something similar to what Weber State has done up in the areas, the homes to the north of there. They've put parking restrictions on when you can and can't park in that area, so it doesn't create a parking issue for the residents. So there's things that can be done to kind of help mitigate that.
Great. Thank you, Director. Okay. Liam.
Just like to commend the planning staff, Tammy in particular, and I don't know who else was involved with the review and outlining of the applicable state code for the school and what the county is able to require them to do and what exemptions that they have, because it was kind of a tricky code. There's a lot of moving parts in it, but they put it together really well. And I reviewed it before the meeting, and I think everybody did really good with that. So, and they always do, but just good job. Thanks for your work there. It was very good.
Thank you. All right. Now, motion to adjourn to the work session.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. This meeting has adjourned. We will now move to the other area behind us directly. Right, Charlie? Are we going to move? Okay. For the general plan work session. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks, Tim.